What up, what up? Malik Rudo here with Mark Bloxton, aka, well, who are you? I guess you're an alter ego, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Violent gentleman.
The violent gentleman, Miles Blackwell.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about your wrestling journey. You just recently started, I suppose, a few months ago, maybe?
3 months ago.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was cool. I thought it was very inspiring. I guess I want to start from the beginning. I mean, when did you first become interested in wrestling?
Since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I grew up with it. You know, kind of like the old guys, like the Macho Mans and like the Roddy Pipers.
Yeah.
And I don't like the guy, but you know, Hogan was around at the time. And
do you mind if I ask why don't you like Hogan?
He's a bad person.
I mean, in real life?
Yeah. He was like super racist, and he made a sex tape with his friend's wife while his friend like recorded it, and then he said a bunch of racist shit, and then he sued the company that distributed it and won like $140 million.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're a white guy and you're racist, you're gonna get $140 million.
Oh, that is horrible.
If you're Hogan. Yeah. Like, you did a bad thing and then you sued the people, or like, here's the bad thing he did, and then he like bankrupted that company and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a piece of crap.
Other than him being a piece of crap, did you like him at the time?
No, I really, as a kid, I never liked him. He's just the name, you know. He's the name that a lot of people know, whether you're a wrestling fan or not.
You're right.
Yeah. So I was like 2 years old, had my little wrestling figures.
Literally 2?
Like 2, 3 years
wow.
old. Yeah. Like, I mean, my great-grandmother watched it. She thought it was, you know, completely 100% authentic. She didn't know a lot of the stuff was predetermined and choreographed and everything. And yeah, so it's kind of been a family thing. And even when I was a child, like my dad would like find the bad guys and he would root for them just to get me mad. So we would like
he knew you were going for the good guys?
Yeah. Because when you're a kid, like you always like the good guys. When you get older, you're like, the bad guys are kind of cool. And there was a particular bad guy, or heel as they call him. His name was the Model, Rick Martel. And he would come out with like a beret on and a vest that had like a button on it that said, "Yes, I am a model." And like, he even had like his own fake like Calvin Klein cologne. It was called Arrogance.
Oh,
and
really?
He'd like spray it in the guy's eyes when the red
did he?
Looking, and be like, ah. Yeah. So my dad like cut out a piece of cardboard when I was a kid and wrote, "Yes, I am a model," and like pinned it to the shirt. Walking through the house, and I'm like, at this time I'm probably 5 or 6, and like I just lost it.
Did you?
Just started like, "No, don't you do that!" He's like laying on the floor laughing, you know. Yeah.
I don't know if I ever asked you this, but so are you an only child?
No, I have an older sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it a family thing? No, all you guys sat down and watched it, or
no, not necessarily. My mom, she went to like a couple shows when she was way younger, and my dad would just kind of watch certain little segments of it. You know, he's kind of a busy guy. My sister never really got into it. I don't think she knows anything about it. My mom knows a lot of the old cats. And I can say like, "Hey, remember this guy? Yeah, well his son wrestles now. Or his grandkid wrestles now." She's like, "Oh man, I remember this guy."
So you love Hulk Hogan as a human.
No.
Not so much. No, so who were your absolute favorites at the time?
Whenever I was a small child, my first favorite wrestler he was a guy, the Native American Tatanka. And he's like a legitimate Native American. And, you know, he came out with the feathers and everything, and, you know, kind of did like the Indian rain dance and everything. And fun fact, his first real big feud was against the Model, Rick Martel.
Oh, really?
So that's when, because like the Model like attacked him and stole his feathers and like made an earring out of it and stuff, and like just to really get over as like, people hate this guy. You know, so he was my first real favorite. And, you know, I had a couple favorites over the years, and like my all-time favorite is a guy named Roddy Piper.
Oh, he's your all-time favorite?
Yeah. That's
a tattoo, isn't it?
Yeah, that's.
I just saw you. We were walking in the building, and I just happened to go, "Oh, who's that? You got a tattoo of?" And you're like, "Oh, Roddy Piper."
Yeah, he's my favorite. He's the one. He's one of the first ones to really leave wrestling and do some Hollywood stuff.
Oh, really?
He was in They Live, John Carpenter movie with the glasses. Yeah. But no, he was just because he wasn't the biggest guy, but you know he wasn't the best wrestler either, but he got over because he was really good on the microphone, which is a big part of your gimmick and your character. And there's a lot of guys out there in like the major leagues that are so athletic and they're so talented, but their microphone skills are awful. and And that's what keeps him from being huge.
Yeah.
And it really sucks for the foreign guys because you got guys from overseas that are amazing, but you can't connect with the American audience when your English is really bad because they just don't buy into it, which is awful.
Right.
They speak 2 languages. They just don't speak your language good enough for you.
That is interesting to hear you say, because I was looking at some interview with The Undertaker, who I think he's doing his big farewell thing today, actually.
Tonight, yeah.
Yeah. He's been in the game 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah. But I think he was saying that same thing. He was saying you could be the best wrestler in the world and still not have success.
Yeah.
Because best physical, athlete, but still not have success because it's about that creating that connection to the audience. That's great.
And a lot of the guys that are like that, they'll have a quote unquote manager, which a lot of times does the talking for them. Their
really?
Mouthpiece. Yeah. Undertaker, one of his first, he had a guy that was like a televangelist that introduced him. His name was Brother Love. He's like real red faced, like a white suit, and always like wiping his face off. It was like a sweaty, greasy televangelist. And then he had his manager that he was more known for was a guy that was like a funeral parlor director, and his name was Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
And he used to carry around an urn, and he just did all the talking for the Undertaker, and the Undertaker would just pretty much say "Rest in peace," like that was his tagline, his catchphrase. So that that helped him get over. But a lot of the ones that have a manager, it's because they're terrible on a microphone.
So what if you could elaborate more on Roddy Piper, what drew you to him the most?
The microphone thing. He was just wound up. And the thing is, his actual story, not like his wrestling story, but like he left home when he was 13.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's from America?
He's actually, like, they billed him from Scotland, but he's from, I think, Saskatchewan, Canada. He's Canadian.
Oh, okay.
And he left home when he was 13, went to, like, lived in a boys' home, used to get in trouble all the time in the boys' home, and, like, the priest or whatever that ran it said, you know what, you got a lot of anger. Let's see what we can do for that. Here's wrestling.
Really?
So he got into it. Then, once he started having kids, he was just like, I will do everything I have to feed my kids.
Right.
So he was just like, his microphone stuff was just nuts. Like, just screaming and just shaking, getting beat red. And, he was always, and this goes back to the Hogan thing, when Hogan was at the top of his game, he was the guy that was just the thorn in Hogan's side. Like, all the years in the 80s and the early 90s, Hogan never beat him.
Oh,
like,
really?
never beat him clean. It was just Piper always beat him. And then when roles got reversed, when Hogan in like 96, I think it was, turned to be a bad guy. It was like the biggest like upset in wrestling. Like, people were throwing trash.
So can I ask I'm kind of ignorant to it. So let me just say to the audience, the bit I know about wrestling is, I know because I respect John Cena and The Rock as humans. So I happen to know that a heel is what you call the bad guys.
Yeah.
And a babyface is what you call the good guys.
Yeah.
You're first telling me about this, and I was like, oh, you're a heel. I gave you a little bit of knowledge that I knew. I was like, I think he'll be impressed. He'll be impressed by this.
Yeah.
So was Roddy Piper a heel?
He was a heel, and he was one of the best heels. So some of the heel stuff he did was actually, when you look back, was a little sketchy. Like, as far as like, I feel like as people we've evolved.
Yeah.
He was in L.A. and he said something about like the Mexican population, because it was back then. Then a lot of people really didn't know that this stuff was predetermined. These guys were characters.
You're right.
And so he said something, and they booed him, and he's like, you're right. I'm sorry. Next week I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna play the Mexican national anthem on my bagpipes as an apology, because he could play the bagpipes. Because his name, Roddy Piper, came out because one of his first matches he came out with bagpipes, and they didn't know what to call him, so they called him Roddy the Piper, and then they just started calling him Roddy Piper. Like, he didn't even know what they were going to call him. So the next week he came out, said he was going to play the Mexican national anthem, and he started playing La Cucaracha.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said they were throwing batteries and pennies. He said chairs were getting thrown at him. Like, they were like, you got to get out of here because you're going to get stabbed.
Wow.
So a lot of times they would cross some lines,
Yeah.
Back then, before people kind of evolved.
Yeah.
So he was like one of the best heels ever. And then whenever Hogan flipped in '96, Piper came back, which was, he was probably in his 40s at the time, had a hip replacement and everything, but he was a good guy. He was a face. So it was like the roles reversed, but they were still going at it. And then the thing kind of panned out to like 97, 98 when Hogan finally beat him.
So can I ask, in your, So what's the name of the company that you're with?
The company I'm with is called Continental Championship Wrestling. There's a couple companies that actually try to go under that name. We are the oldest one with that name. We merged from another company. I don't remember the name, and if the guy that trains me ever sees this, I'm gonna catch hell for it. But like Continental Championship Wrestling itself was established in 1992, and I'm part of what's called the Top Rope Wrestling Academy. So yeah, they have can I say the website? Is that cool?
Yep.
All right, it's ccwrestling.biz, and when you go there, you can see all the links to their YouTube channels. They do a YouTube show every week with a match. Sometimes they do flashback matches. Sometimes they do, current matches, of course. Right now it's a little different because of the pandemic and everything, so we'll shoot like a studio match with no fans.
Okay.
And, and then they'll kind of parcel out the videos throughout the week. Or throughout the coming weeks. Once everything, if it settles out, then they're going to start doing live shows in-house when they're not traveling around. Because typically they tour through Florida, Georgia, Alabama, kind of through that.
Oh, really?
That area. Yeah.
So is the company stationed in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jacksonville. It's like 5 minutes from Whataburger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it makes me so happy. Yeah.
It's just the little things.
Yeah, it's like, you got beat up for 2 hours. All right, let's go get a milkshake.
So, so how did you hear about this? Just as a big wrestling head, you heard about the company just as a fan. You heard about them?
Not really. It wasn't because weirdly enough. So in this small town that we live in here, they did a show back in like 2014 that I went to.
This was in Jacksonville?
No, yeah, that company. No, they did it here.
Oh, they did it in
No, they
town.
did it here. Yeah, the Trembling Earth over there, the rec center.
Oh yeah.
I watched it. It is what it is. It was a good show. Well, anyways, recently over quarantine and lockdown and everything, there's a Twitter hashtag that was trending called "Speaking Out," and it was about a lot of the female wrestlers were coming out talking about trainers that had like sexually abused them or stalked them or did what's called grooming, which is like, hey, you're 15, and they keep them close, and then once they turn 18, they try to date them. So it was like coming out, and it was a lot of these people that were very well established. Some of these guys I was like big fans of, and it was just like, oh my god, are you kidding me? This guy's a piece of crap.
Wow.
You don't do that. And so I made a joke saying, you know what, do I have to go to wrestling school so you guys can have somebody to cheer for that's not abusing people, not running? Because one guy, he came out and he was like, no, I cheated on my wife, but I didn't abuse anybody. And I'm just like, all right, So I was like, you guys need somebody that doesn't cheat on his wife, somebody that doesn't, sexually assault people and, groom anybody. Like, I might have to go to school for that. Not for the grooming and all that, but, to be a wrestler. And a few of my friends on Twitter were like, dude, you should do it. You should do it. So it started out as a joke, and I'm like, all right, everybody tag my wife and be like, let him go. And, a guy who actually lives here in Waycross is familiar and kind of friends with some of the people from the company, and he sent me some links and everything, and I sat on it for a while, and then I got in contact with the guy that runs the company, and I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna do this. And my wife's like, you're gonna do it.
Oh, really?
She's like, I know you want to do it, which is the best thing ever because I haven't always had such a good support system.
Right.
And that's what made it just like amazing. So I'd won a contest at my work that was supposed to spend, a certain amount of money on me. Like, they're not just going to cut me a check, but a certain amount of money on me for fitness programs, school, or travel. And travel's kind of out of the question at the time because everything was still shut down. And so I convinced him to pay for the wrestling school. But like, there's a very old school promoter type vibe, so he doesn't use credit cards and cutting checks. So we ended up just paying. My wife's like, look, what this school costs, I make it in a couple weeks, do it. Like, so I'd go down there, pay the guy. He's like, don't pay it all at once, just pay me a little bit each month. And we paid him off. I got my job to buy me like an iPad or something. So like, it all worked out. And I've been doing that for 3 months, and it is the most fun. And like, make no mistake, if my wife hadn't have been all about it, it would have been a really rough thing to be like, hey, every Saturday or Sunday I'm driving to Jacksonville for a couple hours and driving back. But she's like, you want to do this, like, I want you to do this, So that was like the coolest thing. Like, a support system is everything.
It is, yeah.
And if you have people that don't support you, like, get out.
That's good advice. That's a really good point.
And it's crazy. Like, it's just, I don't know. like even the second week of it, and if I'm getting ahead of some of the questions you might ask, I'm sorry.
You're the violent gentleman. I don't want to interrupt.
You don't.
I don't want to get hit over the head with a folding chair.
You do have some.
I have some metal folding chairs over there.
That might happen. But it was like the second or third week, like it tested me really bad. Like I don't know if I dislocated a rib or it was just something where I couldn't. She had to help me up the steps to our house. She was having to help me out of bed, and she's like, I know you want this, but I'm so conflicted because I see how much pain you're in. And like things just worked out. Like I was like, I need a week off of this, but I don't want to tell the guy like, hey, you know, I'm only 3 weeks in, can I take time off? And
can I ask you, you said she was conflicted, so in that moment, were you conflicted? Were you thinking, shit, maybe I should just quit?
I was asking myself, how bad do you want this? And there's actually, it's really cheesy to say this, but there's like a YouTube video called I Came Too Far to Quit. And it's just kind of like very epic music, and there's like a lot of motivational speakers in the background. One of them is Les Brown, who's like this amazing
he's
guy.
My favorite.
And he said anytime that you have an idea or a dream or a goal, you're sending a telegram to Murphy's Law asking it to come visit you. And so so I was like, oh man, this is testing. Do I really want to do this? Do I want to do this? And it so happened that like I go to training. On a Saturday, they're like, hey, training's gonna be at 3. And I came in like, I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to do. I'm not gonna like wimp out. I'm just gonna fight through tears if I have to. And he's like, hey, we're shooting matches today. Our cameraman like quit. Can you run our like what they call a roaming camera? And I was like, I would love to.
Fantastic.
This is great. Because 2 things happen. Number one, I'm on my feet for like 3.5, 4 hours, which is fine. I'm not falling down. You know what I mean? I'm not. Because wrestlers are basically stuntmen,
right?
You know, so a couple things. I'm seeing a lot of the other guys on the roster, the moves that they do, how they like. I'm just picking up, like I'm learning. It's like watching films for like 3 hours, and then I wasn't like hurting myself. So it's just like I left like I felt like I dodged a bullet.
So can I ask basically this is wrestling school that you're going? So you're going 1 or 2 days a week? How often do you go?
Typically I go once a week. And about 2.5 hours sometimes. And when
we live in Georgia. So how far do you drive?
It is, I think it's 81 miles one way.
Okay.
It's a great drive though.
I mean, how long does it take?
I try to leave my house no late. Like training starts at 10. I try to leave my house no later than 8. And I normally get there at like 9:20. I just always get there early. I just like to get there because it takes a while to get your gear on and you know you stretch and everything. So it takes me about an hour and 15 minutes to get there one way. And when they were like, we train like once a week. I'm like, once a week? Are you kidding me? That's it? But like after doing that, I'm like, now I get why we train once a week. So like some guys will train a couple times, or the guy that runs the company, and then he has his trainer that does most of the in-ring stuff. Fantastic guy, super motivational. He's like kind of like the top guy on the promotion, and he won't tell you to do anything that he won't do himself.
Oh, okay.
So he's not like, go jump, go take what we call like a front bump, where it's like you just jump forward and land on your back. Like you just do like a flip over onto your back and just land. He won't say, hey, go do that, and I'm just gonna watch you. Like he'll do the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And if you mess up, he'll say, okay, this is what we can do better. If you do good, hey, great job.
Nice.
I've never left there without them saying, hey, you're better this week than you are last week. Super motivational. But after training, you're like, man, I see why we do this once a week.
You texted me and you were going, yeah, man, those rings hurt. They slammed me on the rings. I was thinking, yeah, they seem like they fucking hurt.
Yeah.
Like they sound like they hurt. It looks like it hurts.
You grow up hearing a lot of like hillbillies being like, yeah, they got them mattress rings. They're just on mattresses. No, it is not mattresses. It is like this much padding, boards, and steel beams.
No.
Like it is, the ropes. They're not like rubber bands. It's steel cables that are wrapped in rubber.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. My first training session, I had the lines on my
the
back.
The ropes even hurt. Wow.
Yeah, the lines on my back, and I was like looking in the mirror like, look at those lines. I was just geeked about it. Even like today, I felt like today was like the toughest session I've had, and I was ready to die. I felt like I was ready to die. And like 5 minutes out of the parking lot, I'm like, I can't wait for next weekend. Like it's I
texted you texted me this morning and you said yeah, I'm really sore, man, but I can't wait to do the video. I said, you need to do it on a different day. You know, I know what it's like being sore, you know, just for being in the gym. And I think your exact quote was, no, sore in a good way. Like, I live for this shit.
Yeah.
I was like, that's badass, man.
Yeah. I sent that from Whataburger.
Did you?
Yeah. Which is hilarious with some of the wrestling in the Jacksonville scene. Like, I don't know if these guys will see it, but we used to go to a lot of, like WWE has their minor leagues. They're called NXT. And like we used to go to a lot of NXT shows when they were doing shows. And they do one at like the Armory in Jacksonville, and it was like a big deal. Like Whataburger is a huge deal. Like one of the top performers, like her first job was Whataburger, I think.
Oh, really?
So like fans would be chanting. Her name now is Raquel, but back then she was known as Reina Gonzalez, and like a lot of fans would just chant like Whataburger during her match. Yeah, like some of the guys who are like, you know, like I think these guys might be. I haven't watched a lot of like WWE recently, but the guys are like the tag team champions now. They came out with Whataburger in their hands, like when they were doing like their entrance and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Whataburger's like, it's huge for a lot of like the NXT friends that I have. They call themselves the Coconut Loop because like all like the different cities and stuff in Florida, like it makes a loop, so they call it the Coconut Loop. But like Whataburger is like, and a lot of the superstars would go there after the show, after they break everything down, and like they just go there and would eat with the fans and everything. Yeah,
nice.
It's like a super positive experience.
So how long have you kind of been connected to these different friends that are all have this wrestling passion?
I would say, I think I went to my first NXT show in like 2017. And then it was just kind of like, just randomly one of them would follow me on Twitter. So, you know, you do the courtesy follow, like, I don't know this person, but cool. Yeah. And then you're just like, this person's rad. And then you run into them at the shows. And I remember, like, one of them, she actually said, like, it was her and her husband. They're like, hey, it's nice to see you in real life. You know?
It's nice.
Yeah, and it's just like, and, you know, it's a great community. Go to Whataburger together afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah. Whataburger again. Maybe you get a sponsorship off this one.
Maybe. I am vegan though, so.
Yeah.
Fucked it up there, didn't I?
They got salads.
Nice.
Yeah.